The latest orbital mission of China's mysterious spaceplane may be nearing its end. According to data provided by the US Space Force, which constantly monitors it, the Chinese spaceplane would have ejected on October 31st an object which could be its service module or a small satellite. This begs the question, is China's mysterious spaceplane about to return to Earth? Let's find out in this video. Make sure you stick with me to the end. Why is China's mysterious space shuttle in orbit a concern? Space shuttles, which are the advanced technology of the 1980s, are no longer popular. These vehicles can return to Earth by making a controlled landing like an airplane have almost disappeared as the American Space Transportation System (STS) program was definitively closed in 2011 without a replacement. As for its Soviet equivalent, the Buran shuttle, it only had one flight before the project was abandoned in 1993. But the Chinese seem to have a functioning shuttle, and its activity raises many questions. Here is the fact: while the Middle Kingdom likes to stage its undeniable progress in the astronautical field, the launch on August 4th of a Long March 2F rocket was not carried out with fanfare. This one, carried out from Jiquan in the Gobi Desert, served to put a mysterious plane into orbit, according to a statement from the most laconic of the Chinese authorities. However, we do not know much about this machine or its mission. It's been 90 days since China had a spacecraft, presumably some kind of shuttle, in orbit around the Earth. This one raised its perigee, that is to say its point of its orbit closest to our planet, until being located between 597 and 608 kilometers of altitude. This is the second known flight of this machine, about which we ultimately know very little. It first flew in September 2020, but had only completed 2 orbits over 2 days before descending to Earth, as reported by Space News. This ship appears to be part of a 2-stage orbital launch system with rocket-assisted vertical takeoff and horizontal landing, somewhat comparable, no doubt, to the shuttles of the heyday. The challenge here is that this spaceplane, which turns above our heads, seems to drop other smaller machines in its orbit. During the first known flight of this vessel in 2020, the craft had already released an object which could be spotted on radar and which then emitted transmissions for weeks. China remains as discreet as possible on this strange shuttle. The country's China Academy of Launch Vehicle Technology (CALT) acknowledges its existence, but describes it as supporting the construction of China's science and technology power, aerospace power, and transportation power, without finally advancing anything concrete. After 3 months in space, China's mysterious spaceplane has ejected an unknown object. A few days ago, 2 major events reminded us that China is a leading space power that ultimately wants to be on par with the United States. On October 31st, China completed her space station with the launch of the 3rd and final module, the Mengtian Laboratory, only 18 months after the first. Another event that occurred on the same day, and not least, the Space Force of the United States, which monitors space, spotted an object in the immediate vicinity of the space vehicle, which would have been ejected between October 24th and 31st. Let's now highlight the uncertainty about the nature of the released object. Unsurprisingly, China, which does not communicate on this program, has given no information on this maneuver in progress. One possibility is that the object is a small satellite intended to monitor the spaceplane, which would not be the first time. As a reminder, during the spaceplane's first mission in September 2020, a small satellite was released before it returned to Earth and emitted S-band transmissions for several weeks afterwards. The deployed object could also be a test deployment of small payloads into orbit or the spaceplane service module. As stated by Jonathan McDowell, editor of the Jonathan Space Report newsletter, which references the activity in orbit, if it is indeed the service module, the spaceplane should return to the mainland in the next few days, possibly on November 5th. It is assumed, as with the first flight, that it will land at the Lopnor base in Xinjiang. Satellite imagery suggests recent activity near the landing site. Currently, the spaceplane is in a near-circular 597 by 608 kilometer orbit that it joined 2 weeks ago. Next up, let's look into the 13 missions that could be China's next big space project. China will select half a dozen space mission proposals in the next few months from a candidate list of 13 and may adopt their picks as soon as 2024 2024 for operations later this decade. The 13 proposals belong to China's New Horizon program, and they span the fields of heliophysics, planetary science, and astrophysics. A paper titled China's Space Science Program 2025 through 2030 Strategic Priority Program on Space Science, the third, published in the Chinese Journal of Space Science, describes these potential new missions. In recent years, China has accelerated its presence in space with missions like Tianwen-1 to Mars, Chang'e-4 to the lunar far side, and the first spacewalk on their Tiangong space station in low Earth orbit. The newly published paper expands on the country's ambitious plans. According to the paper, a panel of experts will evaluate the 13 proposals, prioritizing some ideas over others. These recommendations will then head over to officials at the Chinese Academy of Sciences headquarters, who will whittle down the list and select 5 to 7 of them to move forward. Then, by mid-2023, the New Horizon program, also known as the Strategic Priority Program 3rd, or SPP3, will head into its next phase when officials determine a plan and budget for their picks. They aim to get this program approved by 2024, as stated in the paper. Let's now look into the list of the 13 project candidates. Starting off with the 3 proposed astrophysics missions, we have Enhanced X-ray Timing and Polarimetry EXTP mission, which is a powerful X-ray observatory orbiting the Earth at 550 kilometers, and can continuously monitor the X-ray of the sky and enable multi-messenger studies for gravitational waves and neutrino sources. Also in the astrophysics missions, we have Dark Matter Particle Explorer 2 DAMPI 2, which is designed to detect possible characteristic features of gamma rays and electrons or positrons from dark matter annihilation or decay, as well as transients associated with events of gravitational waves, tidal disruptions, and high-energy neutrinos. Lastly, in the astrophysics missions, we have the Discovering the Sky at the Longest Wavelength DSL mission, which is a linear array of microsatellites placed on a lunar orbit to provide new insights into the various astrophysical processes in the planets and stars, the Milky Way galaxies, and supermassive black holes. Next up, we have 2 proposed exoplanet missions. In this mission, there is the Close By Habitable Exoplanet Survey CHES mission, which is devoted to discover Earth-like planets of the nearby solar-type stars, and to conduct a census on the nearby planetary systems. The second mission in the exoplanet missions is the Earth 2.0 ET mission, a mission designed to find the elusive habitable Earth-like planets orbiting stars just like a sun. What about the heliophysics missions? Here, there are 4 proposed missions, and they are: 1 is the Solar Ring SOR mission. This mission aims to address the origin of the solar cycle, the origin of solar eruptions, and the origin of severe space weather, with necessary in situ instruments and imagers. The second proposed mission in the heliophysics missions is the Solar Polar Orbit Observatory SPO mission, which seeks to directly image the solar poles in an unprecedented way, and also to construct data-driven, global, heliospheric numerical models, which serves as the foundation for space weather prediction. Also, one of the 4 proposed heliophysics missions, there is the Earth Occulted Solar Eclipse Observatory ESEO mission. This is a solar telescope near the second Lagrange point, L2, of the Earth-Sun system, exploiting the Earth's occultation to explore the inner corona. The last mission in the heliophysics missions is the Chinese Heliospheric Interstellar Medium Explorer CHIME mission, which might provide the first in-situ measurements of pristine interstellar gas and dust in their high-density regions at 2 to 3 AU from the Sun. Wrapping it up, let's talk about the 4 proposed solar system and Earth missions. Here we have the E-type asteroid sample return ASR mission, which is aimed to explore the E-type 1989 ML asteroid and return samples collected from up to 3 sites. Secondly, there is the Venus Volcano Imaging and Climate Explorer VOICE mission to investigate Venusian geological evolution, atmospheric thermal chemical processes, surface atmosphere interactions, and habitable environment and life in the clouds. The third mission here is the Climate and Atmospheric Components Exploring Satellites, CACES, which would support China's targets of achieving a carbon peak by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2060. The last of the 4 proposed Solar System and Earth missions is the Ocean Surface Current Multiscale Observation, OSCOM mission, which is dedicated to the frontier of ocean multiscale dynamics and energetics based on satellite doppelganger oceanography. These 13 proposals were the winners of earlier program stages. SPP-3 had 17 proposals at the end of 2021 after soliciting concepts from research institutes, universities, and industries across China, the document states. That's all for this video. If you found the content useful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel to help us grow our subscriber base and be able to provide you with more fun info like these. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Good luck.